Representative Truitt, would you please identify yourself for the record?
Representative Tim Truitt, District 89, State Representative.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And to begin with, Representative Truitt, would you explain the difference in the original House Bill 605 and the committee sub that's provided? Sorry about that, Representative Paul Janowski.
Okay. Yes, the committee sub does two things. In line 5, it changes the word from a to any. And then in line 14, it goes away from being very specific on the job trainings to something a little more broad. So it says job opportunities, pre-apprenticeships, apprenticeships, and pathways within the building and construction trade industry.
Do you have a motion on committee sub?
Motion.
Have a motion and second on committee sub. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Please go on with your presentation, Representative Truitt.
Thank you. Been in education for quite a while. And, when I first started, we had the mindset that in order to be, successful in life, you need a college education. And that's kind of the way I was brought up going through high school. And that's kind of the way it was when I first got into education. Over the last 5 to 10 years, we've kind of had a shift to where there's just as much emphasis put on career pathways. And to be honest, when I first thought about this bill, or when this bill was brought to me and kind of discussed, I was like, this is not really earth shattering. And the more that I've studied it, and the more that I've looked into it, this may be one of the most beneficial pieces of legislation that we pass this year, because right now we have counselors who are wanting to learn about the trades. We have students who are wanting to learn about the trades. And like in my district, for example, I've got a high school senior who doesn't want to go to college. He wants to do something with his hands, whether that be, electrician or construction. And to be honest, there's a lot of opportunities out there for our students that we're not aware of. I mean, there's programs out there that could be life-changing for some of our students. And that's what this bill is going to do. It doesn't mandate anything. It just allows a counselor, as opposed to using their 24 hours of required professional development on things that may not be that useful for them. It allows them to. All right. Good deal. I'm done. It's a good bill.
We have a motion and a second on the bill. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Representative Massaroni.
Thank you. I see in here that it's counselors for 7th grade, 8th grade. That's kind of a concern. I feel like we're pushing our kids to be more grown up. In 7th and 8th grade, the counselors counseling them on trades, which is kind of common across the Commonwealth. So, is that?
Well, I understand your concern a little bit, but then I also know that you've got kids who are in middle school who are thinking about their future, and I don't see anything wrong with a student learning about some of the opportunities that out there, whether it be in electricians or whether it be in plumbing or welding. I mean, there's tons of opportunities out there. I don't really see a problem with someone in middle school exploring those. I mean, we're not going to turn nobody loose with a welder, in 6th or 7th or 8th grade, but we might show them a video, or we might, put a poster up, in the school that says, hey, if you want to weld, you could make, starting off making 6 figures, and that's the thing. We want students to realize that, you can use your hands. If you will work, you can make a good living, without having that college education. So, that's kind of where that comes in. I think the earlier we can get them exposed to some of these things, I think the better.
Me too.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Mariah, please call the roll.
Representative Baker? Yes. Representative Ballman?
Yes.
Representative Bojanowski?
May I briefly explain my
Yes.
vote? So I have a son who's in the first year of an apprentice program with IBEW to become an electrician. And it has been life-changing for him. With this legislation, students like my son, who dabbled in college, smart kid, but he just wasn't interested. He may have found something earlier. And so I commend you for bringing this. Thank you.
What was your
What?
Representative Bojan? Thank you. Representative Brown?
Yes. Explain my yes vote.
Proceed.
Thank you, Representative Troy, for bringing this bill. I think education must be.
Representative Brown, is your microphone on, please?
Yes, it is.
Could you pull it just a little bit closer? I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing you.
Representative Truitt, I appreciate you bringing this bill forward because our education does need to be multifaceted across all spectrums and giving children, our young people, opportunities that education and the strict K through 12 may not afford them. So, and college may not be the thing for them. So we need technicians. So thank you very much for this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Representative Emily Callaway?
Briefly explain my yes vote.
Proceed.
I want to thank you too for bringing this. This is some of the feedback that I heard in one of my counties as well. Students are ready to start jumping into this and exploring some other options besides the regular path that's being pushed a little bit within the school. So thank you very much for this.
Representative Josh Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Decker?
Explain my vote.
Proceed.
Thank you for this bill, Representative. In my county, I have a young girl. She shadowed me here one day, and she had decided, I think she was in middle school, that she wanted to be a welder. And so she got into the welding program, and she quickly decided she didn't want to be a welder. So it helped her rule that out. But then she decided she wanted to be in construction. But one of the problems was they got to have internships, but she never really got to have an internship in construction because I think the counselors weren't aware of all the things she could have done. And so it was either you go out on the line and get in grave danger at your age as a young lady in a crew. I'm sure there were other things. So I love the part about the training of the counselors. So I think it's an excellent bill. I appreciate it. I think it starts at just the right time, and thank you for bringing it. Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Representative Doan?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Jackson?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Lewis?
Yes.
Representative Massaroni? Representative McCool? Representative Rayburn?
Yes.
Representative Rawlings?
Yes.
Representative Raymond? Representative Riley? Representative Timoney?
Great bill, terrible sponsor. I'm a yes.
Representative Truitt?
Yes.
Representative Wilner?
Yes.
Chair Tipton?
Chair votes yes. House Bill 605 is amended by the committee sub, having received 19 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 0 pass votes. Passes for favorable expression. The same should pass on the House floor. Next, we have House Bill 695, an act establishing the Adaptive Kindergarten Readiness Pilot Project. Representative Kevin Jackson, if you and your guest will please come forward and identify yourself for the record, then I will administer the oath.
Representative Kevin Jackson, District 20, Bowling Green and Warren County.
Steve Robertson with Frost Brown Todd.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Tipton and members of the Education Committee, my friends on the Education Committee. Remember that when you vote. But just want to say thank you for letting us present House Bill 495. And, Mr. Chairman, there is a committee sub.
Representative Jackson, could you briefly explain the difference between the sub and the original bill?
Well, I thought Representative Bojanowski would ask me to do that, so I was ready.
I'm on a tight agenda this morning.
I was ready. I was ready to do that. There's only one word in all of that bill. On page 5, line 15, there's one word that was added, and that is federal funds. So that's the only addition that the committee sub makes.
Any members have any questions on the committee sub? Seeing none, do I have a motion? and
Motion on sub.
Second? Have a motion and second on the committee sub. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Committee sub's adopted. Please proceed, Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. House Bill 695 establishes a pilot project to provide preschool children with access to educational technology programs designed to improve kindergarten readiness through family engagement. Over 50% of Kentucky kids are not kindergarten ready on day one. Let me repeat that. Over 50% of Kentucky kids are not kindergarten ready on day one. That number alarms me, and I hope it does some of you. Since we know how critical the early years to learning are. The members of both parties have co-sponsored this bill, and here's some talking points about House Bill 695. The project will run for 2 school years, 24-25, 25-26, if funds are available. Eligible children include 4- and 5-year-olds who are not yet enrolled in kindergarten. There will be an application process from across Kentucky looking to attract at least 400 kids in the pilot program. The project will use family engagement to deliver age-appropriate reading instruction with an online learning platform. Recommended 20 minutes per day. It'll offer optional instruction in math and science if wanted. It'll align with state standards and national guidelines and assist children with disabilities in preparing for kindergarten. This project will reserve 40% of its slots for children from families up to 200% of the federal poverty level and areas of persistent poverty. Students from families with incomes below 400% of the federal poverty level will receive a computer or tablet and internet access if needed.
Model is what's effective. And Rep. Jackson, I was really glad to hear you say you've seen this in action. And I wonder if you could maybe describe what that family engagement piece actually looks like.
I will tell you from my standpoint what I did about an hour, I'll call it an in-service with the company the other day. And what I could see is, you know, family gets home from work, kids get home from daycare, wherever. Sometime they set aside 15 or 20 minutes that night where they can get together as a family, mom, dad, if possible, and 4-year-old, and sit down and engage with this program. What I saw was very entertaining, I guess to say, but you know, for a 4-year-old, you got to make it entertaining if they're going to, and you could pick right answers, and they would tell you if you picked the wrong answer, and I could just see it. And I know computers are not the ideal thing we all get, but this is not a phone that they're sitting there scrolling on. This is a computer program designated for learning. And if we can bring a family together for 15 minutes, that probably wouldn't do that if it wasn't for this program. They probably wouldn't do that anyway for 15 or 20 minutes. So I think it's a win-win where we can bring a family together and do something educational. I think it'll make that family learn together, work together, and continue to do that hopefully through elementary, middle school, and high school.
Thank you very much.
I have a question from Representative Rayburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a Vanderbilt study that is actually pretty interesting, and I'd like to share it with members of the committee after this meeting. But in that study, it showed that the initial data looked good for pre-K. But then the longer the follow-up in grade 3, it kind of showed worse outcomes. Kids getting into trouble in school, things of that nature. So I'd like to share that with members of the committee. But my question is following kids in kindergarten enough of an evaluation? or should we follow them for a longer process to conclude the pilot is a actual success? Similar to that of the study from Vanderbilt, are we going to have that data to show that it's actually successful? Because, the hypothesis is to shove a ton of academics down a kid's throat and they end up being more prepared for kindergarten. But in some studies, like the one I'll provide to members of this committee, it actually ends up having kids having negative feelings towards school right around that grade 3 level. Any comments on that?
Yes, I'll take that if you don't mind, Representative. Great question. Thank you. So the client that I represent has been active in the state of Utah for over a decade. And the state of Utah certainly required its own assessments of students who had been exposed to this technology versus those in a control group who had not. And certainly what they found for kindergarten readiness is there was a significant improvement in the readiness of the child as they entered kindergarten. Utah then chose to engage in a longitudinal study. So to your point, so that they could track the performance of the children who went through this program through a number of grade levels. And what they found is that the children who went through this program certainly exceeded the performance of children who did not. And I have that longitudinal study and would be happy to share it with the members of this committee following. But specific to who I represent in the state of Utah, they actually did, Utah placed that demand to figure out how are these kids tracking over time. And they were extremely satisfied with the outcomes there. And now in Utah, it started as a small pilot. Now this platform is available to every pre-K eligible child in the state, and that's taken over a decade to get there, but they've been very satisfied with the outcomes.
Mr. Chairman, brief follow-up.
Briefly.
It's interesting. I would like to see, what we're comparing in this program and if whether or not an academic program or a more play-based program is efficient for the success of our students here in Kentucky. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for Representative Timoney.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you all for bringing this forward. I had an opportunity to participate in early childhood fellowship a few years ago, and I really, really learned a lot about how critical from literally birth to 5 is on the trajectory of a student's educational outcome. I do want to reference the study out of Vanderbilt. That was out of the Nashville City School System, and the sample size was so incredibly small that study has been debunked over and over again. The reality is that with pre-K programs in particular, it's not about pre-K programs because it could be also childcare. It's high quality childcare. That's the phrase, high quality childcare. I think we all should stop talking about universal pre-K. We need to talk about high quality childcare. And that means having highly skilled professionals working with our kids. The basics, socialization is very, very important. We have students in pre-K programs that need to learn how to operate in spaces with other 8 little people that look like just like them. They need to understand rule following. They need to understand all the basics so that they can become high achievers and they can learn in academic settings. So any program with intentionality, I would like to echo one of the other statements as far as the computer-based program. Still, the quality of the human being in front of that classroom, there's no way to justify any change from that. There's no way to say that there's a better way of doing it. There's no computer, there's no AI, there's nothing. It's that human being in the front of that classroom is the critical point. But this is a step in the first direction. Any investment we can make with this group, I'm 100% supportive of. Thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Representative Timoney. And the reason I brought this bill to you today, my 4 grandkids all have had the privilege of being in a pre-K church-related school. We've been very fortunate that they've been able to do that. My 9-year-old now he tests in the 99th percentile on reading and math in the 3rd grade. But not every kid in Kentucky has the opportunity to attend a private, religious, pre-K school. So I'm thinking about those kids. What can we do to help those kids? And if we can get 15 or 20 minutes with them and their caregiver, whether that's a parent, whether that's a grandparent, whether that's whoever, older brother or sister, if we can get 15 or 20 minutes with them, to try to learn how to read at 4 years old and become better prepared for kindergarten on day one, then I feel like we've done something to leave a mark on the state of Kentucky. And that's the reason I brought this. It's not for my grandkids. They're going to be able to get it with a teacher in front of them. But a lot of kids are not going to be able to do that across the state of Kentucky. And this could be an opportunity like it has been in Utah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll take one more question from a member, then we're going to vote. Representative Decker.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the bill and your presentation. I have a question about how important is the internet piece to this? And I'll tell you why I ask. When my children were small, my daughter's 3 years older, so when she was 6 and he was 3, we had a computer. It was not always on the internet. In fact, I don't think my children could have gotten on the internet a long time ago. But we had a program, I think it was Magic School Bus Math. All it did was you turned it on, that math program was there, and I don't think I would have known what to expect of my son until I saw him proceeding through levels of math at 3 years old. It was a game. He learned. It was just astonishing to me. Could we take out the internet portion? How important is the internet portion of the bill?
Thank you, Representative. Great question. I'll take that. So the client that I represent, their platform is a web-based platform. And typically, if a family does need a device, there's a tablet of some sort or a laptop that is not fancy but sufficient to handle the interaction with the platform. And if there's a need for internet, typically in 90% of the instances, a hotspot device can be sent with that equipment so that parents are trained to use that. But not every household has an internet demand. But we do want to make sure that I don't want to assume that KDE is going to select the entity that I represent, but we do want to make sure that whatever platform might be necessary, whatever needs might be there for that platform, that at least the framework of the bill speaks to servicing that platform. And in my instance, it would be a web-based platform, and internet could be a barrier to a family engaging, particularly a family that's at the lower 200% of federal poverty level or below. That internet could be a barrier.
Just follow up briefly.
Briefly, please.
But could this be achieved without the internet? Could you load them with programs that would achieve the same purpose but protect against any harm that might be done by the internet? And who is giving, the safeguards that might be necessary for the internet? And I don't think the bill covers that.
Right. Certainly the bill does not cover that. We assume that parents can help children make those decisions about what they're exposed to online. I know at our home we do.
Sure.
But the bill does not speak to that. We just want to make sure that there is no barrier to a family engaging in a system like that to better prepare their child for kindergarten. Thank you, though. Yes.
Mariah, please call the roll.
Representative Baker? Representative Bauman?
Yes.
Representative Bojanowski?
Yes.
Representative Brown?
Explain my vote.
Briefly.
I had a question, Representative Jackson, and my vote is contingent upon the answer to the question. Your sub, item 7, says...
Representative Brown, you're recognized to explain your vote.
I asked to be recognized before.
I apologize
the vote was
if
taken.
you weren't. Staff did not have you on my list. I apologize for that.
Well, I just need to get this out. That the thing is that this would be this section, to the extent that federal funds are available, I think we need to pursue it whether federal funds are available or not. And my vote would be yes, contingent on that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So was that a yes or a pass?
I said yes.
Okay, I just didn't hear. Representative Emily Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Josh Callaway?
No.
Representative Decker?
Pass.
Representative Doan?
No, ma'am.
Representative Jackson?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Lewis? Representative Massaroni? Representative McCool? Representative Rayburn?
I'd like to explain my vote.
Proceed.
I'm a no today. I would encourage my colleagues to look at that Vanderbilt study, which did include a sample size of 3,000 students. Thank you.
Representative Rawlings,
Pass.
Representative Raymond,
Yes.
Representative Riley,
If I could explain my vote
Briefly.
real fast, my yes vote. Doing nothing is not a solution. We've got a major crisis, not only in our state, but in our country, of having young people who are not prepared. In many cases, it's not their fault. Obviously, many of them are growing up in difficult situations. But if we do nothing, that's exactly what we're going to get, nothing.
Representative Timoney,
Yes.
Representative Truitt,
Yes.
Representative Wilner,
Briefly explain my yes vote.
Briefly.
I'm fully supportive of this. Yes today, and I think any initiative that's going to encourage parents and their kids to learn together is a positive thing. So thank you for the bill.
Chair Tipton.
Chair votes yes. House Bill 695, as amended by the committee sub, having received 12 yes votes, 3 no votes, and 2 pass votes, passes for favorable expression. Same should pass on the House floor. Next on our agenda is House Bill 798, Representative Nick Wilson. If he has any guests, please come forward. And please identify yourself for the record when you get to the table. Then I will administer the oath.
Representative Nick Wilson, 82nd District, Whitley County.
Representative Deanna Fraser Gordon, Madison County District 81.
Rodney Richardson, Chief of Police, Richmond, Kentucky.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have this morning a very simple bill that just adds to the list of weapons included in our statute based on school grounds. I brought the chair and our colleague to say where this need come from, if you don't mind to give some background on what happened.
Thank you all for allowing me to be here. Right now, basically, the weapons that are prohibited on school property in the KRS have some really good items that do not need to be on school grounds. But what it includes is part of the deadly weapons statute. And if you read the deadly weapons statute, the items that are prohibited include a knife other than an ordinary pocket knife or hunting knife. Now, there's no definition specifically for what an ordinary pocket knife should look like, appear, be like, or a hunting knife specifically. And manufacturers out there, you could look on your smartphone now, just look up hunting knife. You can find anything from 8 inches to 17 inches. So we've had cases where students are bringing these large fixed blade knives, keeping them in backpacks, bringing them on school property, and there's nothing that law enforcement can do in order to charge them for bringing those knives regardless of what purpose it's for. We honestly don't see a purpose for a hunting knife or anything that calls itself a hunting knife on school property. And that's why specifically included in the bill is a knife with a blade size no longer than 3 inches. So when I was in school, I worked on a farm, and I had a pocket knife, and this is not a zero tolerance part of the bill. It's just basically saying, hey, if you're going to carry a knife, an ordinary pocket knife is a blade that is 3 inches and nothing any longer. So we specifically had a case in Richmond where a student did not have access to firearms, which is prohibited. So what they did, they stole their parents' car, they drove to a pawn shop, they tried to break in a pawn shop and access a weapon. They couldn't get the weapon. So they decided they would grab a knife, the largest knife they could find, go to the school and wait for students to get off the school bus. And they contemplated how many students they could attack before it could be ended. Now, luckily, that did not occur and it was stopped. But these are the kind of things that we're facing as law enforcement when we talk about weapons on school property.
Motion on the bill.
Second.
Have a motion, a second on the bill. We do have some questions, but I'm going to go first. As you describe this, it'd be any knife with a blade 3 inches or longer. Is there anything in this bill that would prevent a school district from having a policy more restrictive than this?
I don't believe so. Do you? No.
No, sir.
Okay, a question from Representative Rayburn.
I guess I'm a little confused with this piece of legislation. I understand the intent of it, but don't all school districts prohibit weapons from being on their grounds? I know when I was in school, no knives were allowed, even a pocket knife. So I'm wondering the ultimate goal here, or the need for this language change.
Well, I think even if a school has a policy against carrying a knife, it's not in this statute making it a felony that would be actionable in juvenile court. That's what this statute does.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Bojanowski.
I suppose my question's kind of along the same. I mean, I'm a teacher, and I honestly wouldn't want a child to have a knife that was 2.9 inches long in the school building. I mean, we can't take anything on an airplane. I don't believe that we should be able to have any knives. Can you just speak again a little bit on, I mean, I don't think students should bring a pocket knife or a small hunting knife to school either. Could you maybe reflect on why you selected 3 inches or longer? Because that really concerns me.
I think that's a decision a school can make of school policy. I mean, there are cultural reasons where people carry pocket knives. Some people collect them, trade them. That may not be appropriate to do at school, and the school can decide that. But this bill's deciding what is a Class D felony and what is not. I think there's been a long-standing. It lists deadly weapon, but as the officer stated, that list isn't really capturing some of the knives they're seeing. So maybe that's a question of, do we want to ban pocket knives or not? More than, but it's also about the felony as well, which I think is separate from school policy.
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I'm reading this correctly, this does not just apply to students. If I'm a spectator at a basketball game or football game and I come in with a pocket knife in my pocket and something happens and I'm found to have over 3 inches in my pocket, I could be charged with a felony?
That'd be correct. Yes, sir. It's on school property. It would fall under the same as a firearm or anything else that's restricted currently.
And just for the record, could you remind us what is the penalty for a Class D felony?
It's punishable 1 up to 5 years.
Thank you.
Representative Doan.
Representative Baker took most of my talking points, but I've got a box cutter at home that has a knife on the end, and 3 inches isn't much bigger than my finger. And so, I've got concerns about folks that may accidentally walk in with a box cutter that they had at work to a school game to watch their kid play basketball, and now we're accidentally charging them with a felony because it fell out of their pocket. So I've got concerns with that. Thank you.
If I may add, I think it specifies the blade has to be 3 inches or longer, not the total device. So in a box cutter situation, the razor would not be extended more than 3 inches, as far as box cutters that I've seen.
Go ahead, Representative Down.
I should have been more specific. There's a box cutter, and on the other end is a knife. It's kind of a multi-utility tool. I've used it when I used to assemble grills at Lowe's, and so it's just got that extra knife on there that's more than 3 inches, and I'd rather not get a felony for that.
And there are many exceptions listed in the statute already regarding hunting knives. It even mentions hunting season, crossing the property. The goal is not to charge people with felonies that have a pocket knife in their pocket at a basketball game.
Committee will stand at ease. Members have asked several questions today and expressed some concerns. After consultation with the sponsor on the bill, this bill will not be voted on today for discussion only. Any other questions? Next is House Bill 799. Representative Wilson, you're already here and you're already sworn in. Do you have any other guests with you on this one?
No, sir, I do not.
Well, you're already sworn in, so please introduce yourself for the record again and proceed.
Nick Wilson, 82nd District, Whitley County. My guest would have been, he's actually in Washington, D.C. today, so he's seeing all forms of government today. My guest would have been the Corbin, Director of Pupil Personnel and Home Hospital Services. He brought an issue to my attention that they had been experiencing at Corbin Independent School, where some students would check into a facility for mental health related reasons, and those stays are normally a few days, 3-4 days, and based on the regulation, KAR, there would be no funding for the educational services provided because they require a hospital stay of longer than 5 days. So my bill, House Bill 799, would simply make a distinction between the inpatient facilities for this place called the Trillium Center. It doesn't lower the length needed for a home hospital stay, but it does just make the distinction for these inpatient
Motion
facilities.
on the bill.
Have a motion and a second on House Bill 799. Are there any questions? Seeing none, Mariah, please call the roll.
Representative Baker? Yes. Representative Ballman?
Yes.
Representative Bojanowski?
Yes, thank you.
Representative Brown?
Yes.
Representative Emily Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Josh Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Decker?
Yes.
Representative Doan?
Yes.
Representative Jackson?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Lewis?
Yes.
Representative Massaroni? Representative McCool? Representative Rayburn?
Yes.
Representative Rawlings?
Yes.
Representative Raymond? Representative Riley? Representative Timoney?
Yes.
Representative Truitt?
Yes.
Representative Wilner?
Yes.
Chair Tipton?
Chair votes yes.
Thank you.
House Bill 799, having received 18 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 0 pass votes, passes with favorable expression. Same should pass on the House floor. Thank you, Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Last item on the agenda is House Bill 828. Representative Timoney has already headed to the table. So please identify yourself for the record, Representative Timoney, and then I will swear you in.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Committee. Kinley Timoney, State Representative, 45th District.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Committee. I'm excited to be here today to talk about this bill. As a former teacher, an administrator, one of the things that I felt was really, really important that was missing from our current schools, in our current systems, is a funded mentorship program for our teachers. I make no bones about it. The X factor with student achievement is that grown up in the classroom and how skilled they are. And I think that one of the pieces where we are today, with so many new teachers and so many teachers that are coming into the profession from other professions, our different options that we're creating, there's an even greater need for a mentorship program.
Just for clarification, there is a committee sub. Okay, we had a motion on the sub in a second. Representative Bojanowski, would you like to ask Representative Timoney a question?
Representative Timoney, could you explain between the original bill and the sub, please?
Yes, ma'am. The substitute removes the requirement of an offer of employment prior to receiving a provisional certificate for the options, for all the different options that we offer our people come into the profession.
We have voted on the sub. We need to vote on the sub first. I know it's been a long day. All those in favor of the committee sub say aye. All opposed, no. Committee sub's adopted. Now we have motion on the bill. Is there a second? We have a second. Representative Bojanowski has a question.
So I did K-TIP, and it was phenomenal. It was a lot, and I know that we're kind of looking at doing something not quite exactly the same as K-TIP, but I want to ask a little bit about the mentor teacher. So the mentor teacher, would that teacher be continuing to carry a, full caseload or have her own responsibilities? And is this something that maybe there would be an additional compensation for being a mentor teacher?
Well, you preface this question very, very well. One of the things that I was concerned with is the burdens in the classroom on teachers today is overwhelming. And I remember what going through K-TIP was like. I also know what being a K-TIP mentor teacher was like, and it's incredibly burdensome in both directions. This is a much more streamlined version of that, where mentors would be compensated for their time. And it would be very, ultimately the program will be set up by EPSB as far as, the specifics, but ultimately it's for helping teachers. Well, ultimately the goal is to keep teachers in the classroom once they're hired, period. Okay, then there are secondary things of importance, working on classroom management, lesson planning, overall culture of the building. I know a lot of school districts are already doing this on their own, but I wanted to kind of express my importance for this particular issue by bringing this bill forward. You're welcome.
I have a question from Representative Emily Callaway.
Thank you. We're going to be creating an additional burden on EPSB, and some of that may fall back onto our districts. So how do you address those concerns?
Well, first and foremost, I think that there are, just look at the issues we've dealt with so far this session. I mean, we've talked about bus drivers, we've talked about school discipline, we've talked about truancy, we've talked about all these issues. But I think it's time that we go on the offensive. What I mean by that is I think we need to start attacking the problems in education, and that's our student achievement. All of the problems we've dealt with so far are fixes for things. Now let's be aggressive and let's move into the direction of something that's very, very important. We have to prioritize. To answer your question, we have to prioritize. And I think that if all we're doing is run around plugging holes and we're not figuring out why the water's coming through in the first place, then we're just going to be plugging holes for the rest. And this profession needs to go on the offensive and really start focusing on student achievement. And the magic is in the classroom.
Representative Truitt.
I've got a couple questions, if that's okay, Chairman. The first one is, I see the benefit in this. I guess first was a statement. I see the benefit of this, especially for our option 6 folks, who, may be coming to the education world later in life, maybe after pursuing another career. Me and you have talked before about, would you object to maybe looking at including some of the co-ops in this area? Would you have any objections towards that?
Absolutely not.
Next question I have for you. Do you think that if you would have had a better intern teacher early on in your career that you could have become a better educator?
Mr. Chairman, if I had you as my mentor teacher,
you're under oath now.
No.
I do have a question, Representative Timoney. I've got good news and bad news. There's 12 days less of session. That's the good news, and that's also the bad news. Getting a little late in the year. It mentioned funding. Are there any funds provided for, or would there need to be funds provided for this to be enable local districts to fully implement this section?
There will be funds needed for this.
Okay. So if this bill were to move forward, it would probably need some budget language as well.
Yes, sir, it would.
Second question, you mentioned the mentorship piece. Could you address a little more specifically on the certification pieces you have in here? the changes to certification and how those processes would work.
Yes, sir. In particular, we mentioned the committee sub dealt with all the different options that we have, the different pathways to become teachers. And there was a circumstance that if you read our statutes to the letter, there were some conflicting issues with you couldn't get a certification unless you had a job offer. At the same time, you couldn't get a job offer unless you had a certificate. So it did clarify that. And it also dealt with, instead of offering that initial internship piece, it gave you a provision. It gave you your certificate, a 5-year certificate right off the bat. Once you passed your teacher prep program, and then once you passed whatever assessments you need to do, in Kentucky's case, in most cases, it's the praxis. It removed that additional obstacle for teachers to remain in the classroom. I weighed that heavily. I looked at that because quality is very, very important to me, but where we are right now, we need to remove obstacles. And if you've passed your teacher prep and you've passed your praxis, we're going to go ahead and give you a certificate. And then we're going to coach you up. School districts still will have tenure if teachers are just not making it, if it's just not supposed to be, if it's not supposed to be, they will still have that opportunity to non-renew. I think it was important to address that one additional obstacle and remove it from preventing teachers from being in the classroom.
See no more questions, and House Bill 828 is amended by the committee sub, having received a proper motion and a second.
Votes I missed.
We'll do that after we finish this vote.
Thank you.
Representative McCool, Representative Rayburn,
Yes.
Representative Rawlings,
Yes.
Representative Raymond,
Yes.
Representative Riley, Representative Timoney,
Yes.
Representative Truitt,
Yes.
Representative Wilner,
Yes.
Chair Tipton.
Chair votes yes. House Bill 828 is amended by the committee substitute, having received 18 yes votes and 1 no vote. Passes with favorable expression. The same should pass on the House floor. Representative Massaroni, you're recognized to record
Thank
votes.
you. On House Bill 799, I'm a yes, and House Bill 695, I'm a no. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Wilner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We heard from a couple of members of the Kentucky Student Voice team today, and I believe that there are several members of that group here, and I wonder if we could maybe just recognize them and have them
Please, would you all rise? Thank you all for being here today. Appreciate. I hope it's been an informative morning for you. And yeah, Representative Lewis would like to record a vote, I believe.
Record a yes vote on House Bill 695, despite that sponsor also. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else seeking to be recognized? If not, the meeting's adjourned.